There's nothing quite like a passionate fan. Their nervous excitement, their unbridled joy, their borderline obsessive pursuit of anything of and or related to the source of their fandom. These devoted individuals are a telltale sign that you have achieved connected brand status. Congrats. Yet, so few brands actually understand the art and science of creating fandom. Our guest this week is a big fan, not just of brands, but of the fans behind the brands. Christina Garnett, host and author of Fan of the Fans, is here to share with us her unique perspective on how to fan the flames of your most devoted fans. Do you use Riverside for your own podcast as well?
I do. Yeah,
okay.
I use it for both of mine. I love it. I'm a big fan.
Nice. Oh, well, such a great segue. Speaking of big fan, I'm a big fan of yours.
Same. Right back at you.
Well, thank you. Thank you. I'm so excited for you to be on an episode of Connected Brand because I love the way that you think about people, like hard stop, because you care so much about folks and about people. But for folks who don't know you and haven't had the profound privilege of getting to spend time in your company, tell us a little bit about you.
Yeah, so I am the poster child for ADD, I think, because my brain always works in like multiple ways. If you look at my career journey, I was an English major in college, taught math for 5 years, public and private, then took a few years off to be a stay-at-home mom, re-entered the workforce, found marketing, went full obsessive compulsive, like deep dives, all the things, read every book, watched every webinar, did all the things, became a fangirl for HubSpot, found HubSpot Academy, learned everything through there, worked at HubSpot for about 3 years, just left at the end of this past year, but I've worked with small businesses as a marketing director for my local small business development center, worked as a consultant for social strategy, have worked with agencies like ICUC. I was a strategist and worked with Fortune 500 companies as clients there. And so a little dabbled along the way and then left corporate at the end of December, have started my own company called Pocket CCO, which is fractional chief customer officer and consulting advisory services. And here I am talking about things I love. I've created a podcast and newsletter called Fan of the Fans. And I also have another podcast because there's not enough hours in the day. It's called the Woman's MBA podcast because I found there was a lot of business podcasts that were not giving me the story that I desperately needed to hear. And so I'm one of those people, you wait to see what you need and see if someone creates it. And then when it doesn't get created, like, oh, that was my job. I'm the one that's supposed to make this a thing. Cool. I'll do that now.
If you don't see it, it means you got to make it, especially with the tenacity that you have, clearly.
Oh, thank you. But it is true. Like you wait for it to ship and then it never ships. And you're like, oh, okay. This is my job. Okay. Noted.
Too funny. Well, we were two ships passing in the night at HubSpot. We missed each other probably by 2 years. When did you join the team? I
joined 2021, early February 2021.
I left in February of 2018. So we missed each other by quite a stretch. But I have to imagine part of the reason you became a fan of that brand and why I became a fan of that band have a lot of overlap. So
I bet they do. Yeah.
What are some of the things that you learned about working on a brand and with a brand like HubSpot from the inside that folks might not expect?
I don't know if it's what they would expect or not expect, but I love how in most companies, whether it's true or not, you kind of envision that leadership is kind of untouchable. And so at HubSpot, and you can see this if you're active on social, like Brian and Dharmesh are like all over social media. And if you're tagging them or they see something, they're not going to divert that and say, be like, hey, take care of this. They're actually going to dive into those conversations. And so they're highly personable. And if you go to inbound and you see them on the floor and you say hi, like they'll say hi back to you. Like it's that feels very anti-corporate. That feels very counter to what you would probably imagine most businesses do. So that was really lovely. And then a lot of businesses tend to have like customer facing versus not customer facing. And at HubSpot, that's true. However, there's this understanding that everyone has the possibility to solve for the customer. So whether you're touching or not, your work in some way is touching that customer. So how can we make sure that it's for the betterment of them? That was always really lovely.
I think you nailed it on the head. The accessibility and the relatability of the entire team. It didn't matter what role they held, what position they had within the company, that they were all accessible. I'm so glad that you got to access Brian and Dharmesh in the ways that you did. My access to Brian Halligan was that my dog, Cody, who came to the office with me every day, and Brian's dog didn't get along.
Oh, no.
But Brian was very nice and he was accommodating. And so, yes, but Cody is... she still harbors some beef. I don't know what it is. She didn't like the Nepo baby who got to run around the office, I imagine. Sorry, Brian.
Romeo will forever be referred to as the Nepo baby.
100%. Cody was like,
Amazing.
I got to be on a leash and just sit here. That dog gets to do whatever they want. What?
What is that?
Gets to be on stage during Inbound.
Like, what is this?
You mentioned
dying. That's canon now.
Oh yeah, Nepo baby, Romeo Nepo, just like his face on a t-shirt, Nepo baby. We mentioned solve for the customer, or STFC if you're on the inside. But
we
STFC,
love an anagram.
And if you're not in B2B SaaS, do you even care about the alphabet soup that is our language?
Like, are you sending me like military signals of where you are, or is it just like a framework reference? You'll never know.
Actually, both. It's like this parallel universe that we live in. But so, I mean, you got to have a really cool role at HubSpot. I think folks who don't know you, like talk to me a little bit about your journey into customer marketing. Why solve for the customer even matters to a company?
Yeah. So my background was very heavily in marketing and social strategy and things like that. But I was found as a fangirl. Like, we know you're a fan of this place. So who better to create something for the fellow fans than me? So I joined the team, got brought in. There was a gamified piece for called Hub Fans. And then there's the community piece. And so how can we really kind of create a choose your own adventure style of how people can feel appreciated and loved in return? And so when I was able to announce, because I'd been a fangirl for quite a few years, I knew a lot of the major players. Like, I knew a lot of the partners by name. I knew a lot of like ancillary, secondary level customer and partner relationships. So when I was able to announce on Twitter, I specifically said, like, if you're a HubSpot fan, like, slide into my DMs. I want to talk to you. And I immediately did customer interviews. What do you love about us? What do you hate about us? When was the last time we made you feel special? When was the last time we made you feel loved? And what did that look like to you? Because it looks very different to different people. I mean, it sounds corny, but there is a love language. Some people will literally like go to the fires of Mordor for you for a hoodie. Others, they're going to need to talk to Yamini or they don't care. And so you need to know, what is their carrot? What's motivating them? What does love look like to them? And what does the love look like to you? Is that a testimonial? Is that a YouTube video? Is that speaking at an event? Like, what does that look like on either side? And so it was really beautiful to be able to kind of build my dream program based off of like, what would I have loved to have gotten? Like, what are the kind of opportunities that didn't exist? I was like, that would have been so cool if that had been a thing. And so one of the things that I created was the Inbound Correspondence Program, which is where we have customers and partners. They get a ticket to Inbound and they're able to share their experience. They're on social and they're not just taking pictures, but they're sharing highlights from sessions or what they really loved or all the opportunities that they had. And what I found is probably the easiest shortcut for customer marketing is, if you wanted to pitch it to someone else's, what would happen if you treated your customers the way you treated influencers? What would that look like?
Such a profound question. And also, what I love about your approach too is actually you didn't presume that you knew the answer to that question in the first place.
No.
You actually asked your customers, what would it look like if I treated you like an influencer?
And what does that look like? And the thing is that a lot of companies, they immediately know what influencer marketing looks like. And they're like, here's the kit, and here's the UTM, and here's this, and here's that. Great, amazing. But there's customers who are on the other side of that being like, I would have done that for free. Where's my PR box? Where is it? And they see, but what that's telling them is that whether you realize it or not, is in the mind of the customer, they're thinking, I have given you all of this money. I have bought all of these products, and that is still insufficient because I don't have a certain number beside my name on a social media platform. And that's really hard. So you take a moment that could have been used for delight, and instead you make them feel less worthy and less valuable to you, which is wild, but it's still true. Like there's tons of people. I remember I think it was Tarte, but it was one of the makeup companies that took all of these influencers on a trip, and they weren't even using like the actual like makeup from the brand. They were using their own stuff anyway. So they're going to like Jamaica to do something, but they're wearing like Charlotte Tilbury stuff. And I was like, Charlotte Tilbury didn't pay for that trip. Like influencer 101, you use what you were paid to use.
Mm-hmm.
And then the customers, so many of the comments were, I'm such a diehard fan. I would have killed to go on this trip. Like where what? And they did listen and they did try to like do like a oopsie makeup trip. But it's like how we know what an influencer is. We know what that looks like. And that does work. Like I'm not going to say influencer marketing doesn't work. But imagine if you diverted that and like let's cut that in half. And let's do half for the influencers and half for the people who absolutely love us, would do it for free, just want to feel special. So you're getting the reach, whatever their reach is. It's also more believable because it's clearly not an influencer play. And then they feel special, so they're less likely to churn. And now they're stickier and more emotionally tethered to your brand. That's a win. That's such a win.
Huge. It's such, I mean, what I love about that model and what I love about that approach is that it actually gives your customers access to a world that they otherwise would never have had to access, all
Yes.
thanks to your brand. And it's
100%.
that experience that has forever connected them with an emotional tether to you and to what you stand for and why your brand exists.
100%.
I love that.
Another example of this that I absolutely love is Troy Sandage, who I absolutely adore. He's been an advocate. He's been a correspondent. He has a podcast on the HubSpot Podcast Network. And so the past 2 years, he was first year by himself, second year with co-host Christina K, but was a host of Inbound. So he was the main stage host, kind of livening up the crowd between sessions and things like that. When you're trying to figure out what do things mean to people, we go to that MasterCard commercial, like what is the priceless? What does priceless look like? Because I can guarantee you no one can give someone a hosting spot at Inbound but HubSpot. Like you could be a fan of any other company. I can replace a hoodie. I can replace a Yeti. I can have stickers all over the place. That's great. But I can't replace that. No one else, no other brand can give me that. So when you're trying to figure out, we want like a showstopper, we want a core memory, we want to create just like, I want someone to feel shocked and surreal when they are realizing what they're getting. You have to answer that question. Like, what is something that only we can give, that only we can provide? And once you have the answer to that, it's wild what you'll be able to do. You'll like just, it goes from I had a great experience to this brand changed my life. And that's priceless.
I mean, to be able to say that you changed in your customers' lives, I think should be most companies' goals. And yet so often we forget, or the brands forget that they're a host to like a very exclusive party, right?
Yes.
They assume that like everybody should be here, and they forget that they play a role in hosting and facilitating experiences like that.
Yeah.
What do you think that disconnect is? Like, why does that tend to happen for companies, that they just forget their role in creating this space that has the ability to change lives?
I think it comes down to the binary option of if we kept the customer. That does not mean that you did a great job. It just means it was good enough. And that could mean there's not a competitor. It could mean that there is a competitor, but they can't afford it. It could mean that they have a competitor, but it's not an apples to apples replacement. But that has no bearing on whether or not you did a great job. And so we have not.
This is blowing my mind.
But we've not separated between like good and bad. There's good, bad, and great. And so it feels really reactionary. As soon as someone says something negative in a thing, or they threaten not to renew, we immediately circle the wagons, when you wouldn't need to do that if you were activating based off of great. So I think companies do a really great job of good enough. They don't take the opportunity or even consider what the opportunity is to be great. And especially in this AI world where everyone can kind of like put their AI hose up against open ChatGPT and like create all these things, you're immediately creating like this ocean, this red ocean. But in a world where AI is everywhere, the human element is the differentiator. And that human connection and how you treat people and how you take care of them and how you look for the carrots that motivate them, that is how you turn a red ocean into a blue ocean. But we don't worry about that until they're going to leave. If that is built in and integrated into how you look at customer success and customer experience, then you're not going to have to do a lot of that reactionary stuff because you've been taking care of them all along. It's in my house, we talk about how we don't celebrate Valentine's Day because we love each other every day. I don't need flowers and chocolates because like you're good to me every day of my life. Like why are we doing that? Same thing. I don't need to apologize profusely tomorrow because I've been taking care of you and doing a really good job of that the entire time. And we don't solve for that.
First off, our households are exactly the same. We also don't celebrate Valentine's Day for the exact same reason. We maintain it constantly. We are always striving for great. But what really blew my mind as what you're talking about was you actually describing that so many folks look at metrics like retention as great performance metrics. But what you're challenging is that this is baseline, baby.
Yeah, that's the bar. Like the bar is the floor. Like all that means is that you're better than someone else. And that doesn't necessarily mean that it's better as in like the product's better. It could be that it's cheaper. It could be that it's more convenient, but it doesn't mean that it's great. And all you have to do is wait until there's a competitor that like adds a feature and now
offers that feature for free.
Yeah. Like all you have to do, like it's only a matter of time. And if you've been taking care of them this whole time and you've been offering those things that only you can provide, they're not saying goodbye to you and your product that was okay. They're saying goodbye to you. They're saying goodbye to your community. They're saying goodbye to the connections they have inside of that community that make them feel taken care of. They're saying goodbye to all the opportunities that you provide. Like, talk about sticky. Like, you're creating tethers that it's not just a yes or no answer to, I'm just not going to renew. It's, I'm not renewing. And because of that, I'm having to say goodbye to all of this added value. That's harder to walk away from. That's significantly harder to walk away from.
Yeah. It's also significantly harder to, it's easier, I would say, rather, for them to ride the waves of microabrasions that are inevitably going to happen along the way in their journey, because no journey is perfect and flawless and wonderful, but they'll endure the microabrasions along the way because they believe in you and because you've created a great experience. And you've mentioned this like good to great, like you're a phenomenal customer marketer. You're also now creating spaces for fans to help you deconstruct the art and science of good to great in these brands. What are you learning in these conversations about what makes a brand great?
I think it's really important to consider how you make people feel. And I think behavioral psychology is crucial to everything that we do. If someone said like, hey, Christina, I'm going to go into marketing tomorrow. What's the one book I should read? Marketing 101 is not going to be the book I give them first. It's going to be a behavioral psychology book. I'm probably like, because I love him and I think he's a genius, I'm probably going to send them Alchemy by Rory Sutherland because I love that man with my entire soul. That man is a genius. Like, I adore him. But there's so much that you need to understand about how we as humans operate and communicate and feel that once you get that and you zero in on who you want to talk to, like, okay, here's our ICP, here's behavioral psychology, how do those interplay? You are going to do things that naturally work because you understand how people feel. And the thing is that we're having this, especially post-COVID, we're having this need for connection deeper than before because the way we communicated and connected had to change drastically. It just absolutely had to. And because of that, plus other forces, we now no longer have third places or third spaces, depending on who you talk to. So we don't have that safe space outside of work, school, and home. And so what is going to replace that? We have the park that was bulldozed and is now a parking deck. We have the movie theater that you could go see something for like $5 to $10. And now it's like $100 to just go see a movie, whether it's good or bad. So the third place is either disappearing or it's becoming further and further out of reach. And so what fandom is creating, and what honestly the internet is, for better or for worse, they have become that substitute for the third place. So I can go into this space and I immediately have a micro community because we have a singular thing in common. We both like this book, or we both like this actor, or we both like this movie, or we both like this sports team, like whatever that looks like. And so the one thing that I continue to feel over and over and over again as people talk about fandom is that they are a part of something bigger than themselves. And they feel connected and included in that thing that's bigger than themselves because of this singular love that they have for blank. And that's shoes, that's music, that's TV, that's movies, that's brands. Like we did one on Apple, but they feel a part of something bigger than they are, and they feel included. And the only like qualifying thing for it was, do you love this thing? If you love this thing, we'd love to have you. That's the only thing you have to do to qualify. And so that's really beautiful. And I want more brands to be able to facilitate that and be able to offer that. But you can't offer that if you don't understand how people want to feel, and how people, like, what are the happy brain chemicals that they need to have in order for them to feel included. And one of the things that I talk about with clients is I'll talk to social media teams, or I'll talk to their success teams, and I'll be like, all right, I'm assuming you have an escalation process when someone starts yelling at you on social. I'm sure you do. I'm sure it's a spreadsheet. I'm sure you have stuff. Cool. Do you have an escalation protocol when someone is loving you on social? Because I bet you don't. I bet that is ad hoc, no matter how popular or loved you are. I bet you are taking that piece by piece. You should absolutely treat it in the exact same way. Like if you're doing a fire drill when someone cusses you out on Twitter, you should do a fire drill when someone's loving you. Because you need to fix that, but you also need to take care of the people who are loving you, because if you don't love them back, they will feel the same thing that they would feel, is like, I'm going to like just share my love to you and just say I love you, and you're not going to say anything back.
I'm like, oh, I gotta jump off this call and go build a
Go do
customer
it. Go do
escalation for appreciation, the customer appreciation escalation model quick. But what I mean, you really just blew my mind. I just want to go all the way back to you talking about creating that third space, because I'm particularly fascinated with the absence of the third space, just personally, right?
Yeah.
We look around our neighborhoods. What used to be a third space was a shared community, and that community was galvanized around the interworkings of their society. They had that shared connection of, their systems that existed, and for better or for worse, right? Like there was always a system to complain about, like our education system, or there was always a system to like be excited about, And so what I have found very interesting and fascinating about the third space is how the digital connection has allowed us to find and access third spaces that are so niche and so precise to our unique passions. And yet, how many brands actually ignore what's happening, or worse, try to instantly monetize that shared passion? And like, talk to me a little bit more about what you're seeing when it comes to the monetization strategies that brands have when they do find that they have a fan base and everybody's excited, and they come in and they start doing what they do for transactional relationships.
I think probably the best example of this, I can't remember what brand it was, but they went into, I think it was Roblox, or they went into one of those like Web3 spaces in gaming, and we're basically like, hey, we're doing all these things. It was just like CMO, and it was the cringiest thing I've ever seen in a very long time. What you have is you have brands wanting to be a part of something, but because it's a brand, there has to be a business case for it, which means it probably needs to be tied to revenue. So what it looks like is it's very much, hello, fellow kids. Every time.
I too am a kid, a child at heart.
I too love the video games. Like, what? And so what they wind up doing is, instead of going into a community and filling it out and being a part of it and being a engaging part of it and figure out how they can be, like, they should go in there and be like, how can I be a part of this and be a source for good, to amplify it, to maybe strengthen it, to maybe get it resources it wouldn't have. Instead, what they do is they are like, what is the guy from the Lorax? he makes the Sneeds or whatever, but he goes in, he sees this pack of land, and he's like, I'm going to make this in my own image, and I'm going to take all the resources, I'm going to do all of this, and then I'm going to make this thing, and then I'm going to sell it. And so what you have as community builders is we're kind of acting like the Lorax, like, I'm going to need you to remember this isn't transactional. I'm going to need you to know you need to care about these people. It isn't going to get built overnight. Like, we're basically like standing on the stump, very like vigilantly, like, I need you to understand these are humans. Like, they have needs, they have feelings. But that's what it looks like. It looks like I'm going to come in here, and instead of how can I be a part of this, it's going to be like, how can I make this in my own image? And it sucks the joy out of it, because now it's this conveyor belt instead of this space to feel joy and to share and to connect. And I've seen it happen way too many times, and it's really, really sad, which I'd rather people do. If brands want to tap into community, is instead of going in and being like, how can I make this a part of us? Be like, how can I come in here and be a champion for it? How can I open the doors that no one else in this community is able to open because I'm a part of it? Like, I think that we need to be thinking about it from that, instead of how can I come in here and make money off of it? Because I find that there's a big disconnect between community builders and business. I'm continuing to still see it. The business leader will come from a lens of how will it impact the business. And so the business supersedes the members. The community builder will do the exact opposite. So they will build for the member and then not be able to match the goals or be able to hit the goals for the business. And so in either capacity, the community dies. Either the business leader is being too focused on what we're getting out of it, and the community members feel like they're being taken advantage of. So the community members leave, the community dies. Or the other side, the community is thriving, but the business isn't making any money off of it. So now you have just another cost center. And in this economy, we love to knock out a cost center in a spreadsheet. No more funding, the community dies. So in either case, the community dies. What you need this in tandem framework. How can they work together? What are the business goals? What do the community members want to get out of it? And is there any sweet spots where they hit? Maybe you have community members who love being creators, but they don't have 1 million followers on TikTok, or they don't have 1 million Instagram followers, but they love making content. And you have this brand over here that you'd love to feature the voice of the customer. They're like, hey, we'd love if you make these, we would love to feature them on our thing so that we can help build your personal brand and build your thought leadership, but also that's content for us. Now we're talking mutually beneficial. There's so many things that I see brands just not doing because it takes a couple seconds here and it takes a couple seconds there. I think that not only do we not think about good versus great, I don't think we realize how little time it takes to go from good to great. It doesn't take a lot for some people. It could be just liking their tweet or reposting them on LinkedIn or sharing the story that they tagged you in on your Instagram story. Like, just little things. Like, if you have to sit down and be like, all right, I don't know where to get started, Christina. I have no idea what to do. Cool. Ask yourself this. What will make them feel seen and heard?
Super straightforward. Yeah. Well, what I think is also really interesting, coming even full circle around to this, is if you're going to be a behavioralist, so one of the first things that you learn about being a behavioralist is not to make any assumptions.
Yes.
So you can't make any assumptions in what people are thinking, what makes them feel valued, how they like to be appreciated too. So that underlying assumption
100%.
allows you to find the synergy between
Yes.
the community and the business needs and the business requirements.
Yep.
And with that, then you can start building the foundations of growing into fandom.
100%. 100%. And when we started thinking about like the Hub Fans program when it was being launched, my initial breakdown of like how I saw it working was, you enter the program and you're basically like in the nosebleeds. And as you do more and more things as an advocate, you get closer and closer and closer to the stage. And then ideally you do even more. And now you're getting backstage access. Now you're getting to meet the players. Now you're getting to be a beta tester, giving feedback. Now you have people coming to you. And now you're not only just a user or a customer, but now you're this person with this specific subject matter expertise. And the people who are building the product are like, I'd love to pick your brain. I want to know, like, you asked for this feature. How would that feature help you? How would that make your life easier? And then a lot of time, and just giving them that access. There's so many people, like if you were thinking about how can we take care of people, a lot of people will directly think about monetary things. And that works for people. So I'm not saying cut that out. However, time is an incredibly valuable resource, and there's people who will not take that for granted. They'll feel very special. Like, I can't believe I get to talk to you. I can't believe that you're going to listen to what I'm saying too. It's just, you have to do those customer interviews. You have to figure out what means something to them. And then you have to realize that as you're building this relationship, all the positive reinforcement that you're giving along the way is a flywheel in itself. I want to spin faster. I want to talk about you more. You loved it when I wrote a blog about you. I'm going to make a YouTube video. I'm going to do a TikTok series. I'm going to do everything because you showed me like this. I'm going to do more. And especially in B2B, where I feel like there's this pendulum swing from hyper boring to unhinged. And the sweet spot is really in the center. The sweet spot is actually in the center. Like, we don't need to cuss out and use the word Riz on your Instagram account. Like, I promise.
Oh, quick. I just got to go edit that post real fast. Hold on.
Sorry. But the sweet spot is actually in the center. And usually it's where you have your thought leaders, you have your internal teams, you have your founders and co-founders, you have your voice of the customer. And those are the posts that always do better. You don't have to reinvent your brand and be controversial. Lean into what actually works. We want to hear from the humans. Mm-hmm. So why don't you have the humans talk and then your brand repost that content? That's what we did with HubSpot Academy. It's the majority of its content from the professors and the learners, because that is the actual voice. Like that is the lifeblood of the academy. So when you're looking at the content, that should be the content. And same thing here for brands. People don't want to connect with the brand. They want to connect with people. So that doesn't mean you should abandon your brand account. It also doesn't mean you should go like full unhinged. But why don't you make your brand more human and repost the content from your customers who are saying amazing things about you, from the people who are shouting you out and saying how great you are? Because not only is that content you don't have to create, but now you've given positive reinforcement to a fan. And on top of that, you've given third-party validated evidence of how great the customer experience is that people will actually trust because it's not technically coming from you, the brand. So you're hitting like 3 stones at once. Like you're knocking it out. And so it's those things that I don't think we want to go towards gimmicks, or we want to go towards this when it's like, be human. Like, it sounds incredibly cliche, but it's because it's true. Like, be human. And what does human look like? What are the voices that other people in your ecosystem are seeing over and over and over again? Celebrate them. Hype them up.
I love that. One area where I think brands are actually letting some of their creative juices around being more human, even with the forefront of their handle as the brand, is actually TikTok.
Yes.
I'm watching as brands are actually not that guy in the bar who's only talking about themselves on TikTok, but they actually are doing way more meaningful work in the comments.
I love the comments of TikTok. Yes.
Right? Mm-hmm. Right? And so I think what's interesting is we have this little catalyst here where brands who are active, who are relevant, right? Like, you're not trying to use Riz every other word, but you're staying relevant and you're staying approachable, which is what I think most folks are really gravitating towards when they see, X brand has entered the chat kind of commentary.
Yeah. And it goes back to that I see you.
Yeah.
Like, imagine if you're a creator and you've done this and you've mentioned a brand and all of a sudden they're in your comments. That's amazing. But then also there's going to be people who are responding in the comments, who are tagging that brand to be like, hey, you messed up here. Or, hey, that sounds awesome. I mean, we talk about the Stanley Cup thing.
Yep.
That blew up and created this whole phenomenon. Like, granted, it was pretty popular before, but that kind of created this swell of just brand love.
Sorry to the brand Swell, who also has wonderful water bottles as well too.
That was great too. But created this surge of
also
brand love.
Surge the drink if you're out there.
There's a brand for everything. Just cut out every word from the pocket and just like me.
Every other word. Yeah.
Beep, beep.
Like Christina was just foul mouthed the entire time in this episode. That's why we have so many bleeps.
The whole time. But it's true though. Like there's you have to be where the customers are and you have to know where the conversations are. And I love the brands who are on TikTok and are seeing these creators as like, this is not a competitor of us. This is something that we can utilize. And if we give them a great experience, they're probably going to talk about it on social. Okay, well, where on social would they talk about that? Like a great example, like the brand that I think does like God tier level customer experience is Chewy. I adore Chewy. I adore them. And it not only are they taking really great care and are doing things that no other brand is doing. For those who don't know, they'll send pictures of your pet that's been painted. So that's a core memory. You're going to keep that in your house for the rest of your life.
Right.
And every time you pass it, you have this like warm and fuzzy feeling attached to a brand. You couldn't pay for that if you tried. Or people will call in because they've had an animal pass away. And that animal's not just an animal to them, that's a member of their family.
Yep.
Chewy could easily have a script that basically is trying to talk you off the ledge. You keep that thing. Well, you don't know. Like you'll probably get a new pet next week. Like it's fine. Let's just keep it. Let's just keep the subscription as it is. They don't do that. Instead, they'll say like, "Oh, you have some dog food left over. What? You can just drop that off at a shelter. Don't worry about it. We'll go ahead and cancel this for you. I'm so sorry." And then they'll send flowers and a condolence card.
It's so intentional. It's so connected. It's so caring and kind and human, to use your word.
Beautiful. It is. What does empathy incarnate look like? And it is that. And every time someone talks about it on Twitter or TikTok or anywhere else, it goes viral every single time. That's going to do more than any commercial. That's going to make people feel more connected and want to root on them more than just about anything. And more importantly, that's not a play either, because in the comments, you don't see people being like, well, that's not how they treated me. I had the opposite experience. They're horrible. Like, you don't even see that.
Nope.
So they're taking care of everyone.
They're consistent. They're reliable. Yeah. It's part of their values. Like you can see their value systems from the inside looking out, from the outside looking in.
Absolutely. But that's like, if we're talking about like, who should I emulate? Chewy is always going to be my answer. Always. Because you can tell that you care, because like, that's tiresome. Like I can only imagine like, all right, how much are we paying per painting? How long is that going to take? All right, I have to make sure it's packaged specifically so it doesn't get injured or hurt or damaged and all. Like I have to do this, I have to do that. It's in the middle of winter. What flowers are even in season? Like, what do I even send them? Like, none of it. None of it. This happened. We're doing this.
Yeah. It's unwavering, uncompromised values in what you do, in the experience you're trying to make. And I think they've really planted a foot in what good values look like in a connected brand execution. But I gotta say, like, there are some, I want to hear your take on this as well too, because you're so passionate about Chewy, is there are brands that had it, right? They had the Riz, as the kids say. And then they lost the Riz. Who do you think had the Riz and then lost it? Who was a connected brand and then phased into a disconnected brand?
Zappos.
Not the Zappos, like the happiness culture. Wow. Tell me more.
They were acquired, and it goes from startup vibes to corporate vibes really quickly. So like processes have processes, those processes have processes. And so because Zappos did such a really lovely job, there was like, they kind of defined above and beyond when it came to D2C before D2C was a thing.
Yep.
And in the process of becoming bigger and getting acquired, they lost a lot of that, because then everything kind of became the conveyor belt.
Yep.
So I got to go with them. Which sucks, because I used to love them, but I would never, like, you could feel the difference. You know, you could tell you're like, ooh, this is under new management.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. And some people would make compromises in that quality of their experience if other trade-offs existed, right?
Yes.
Convenience, price, all that stuff as well too. But, you know, if you are going to compromise some things, you have to know what you're counterbalancing those compromises for in your brand experience. Yeah.
100%.
Well,
Sorry.
I have learned so much today, including the right and wrong time to use the word Riz, but also
use the word Riz. I just personally, I see that and I was like, I am hella old. This is not for me. Cool.
Well, you are very, very cool in my eyes. So cool, in fact, that I would like to introduce you to the burning question phase of this conversation. So I asked this question, I saved this question actually for all of my guests. The last question to ask, which is, what's your burning question?
I think my burning question is, and it's something that no one has the answer for because only time will tell, but I'd love to see what we are as humanity after AI, after we all figure out what role AI is going to play in our world. Because I think we're all still figuring it out and we're already seeing the ramifications and the positives. I want to know what it's going to look like on the other side. That's my burning question. What is it going to look like on the other side? Once we figured out, like, here's where the AI lives, here's what they're going to do. That's what I want to see.
I love it. Do you have any guesses of what the other side looks like?
It's not going to be that utopia picture meme from Twitter. It's not going to be like, it's not going to be shiny chrome with like cars in the sky. It's not going to be that. I think it's going to be, I don't think it's going to be Blade Runner either. I do think that like more people need to watch Twilight Zone and Black Mirror, and not in a how like I'm going to take notes for my product meeting, but like I'm actually going to see this on the other side.
Maybe throw in a dash of the Handmaid's Tale as well too. Like,
yes.
I completely agree with you. I don't necessarily think, I actually feel like I see more of a connection, a through line to WALL-E. Once WALL-E discovers where the humans are and the state of the human race.
The problem is that we're not going to take care of humans the way that even in that dystopia, they took care of the humans. They had a place to live. They were able to eat.
Yeah.
We're not going to have that.
I don't think we are. Nope.
But I do love the idea that there'll be Hello Dolly, like singing. And I do love WALL-E, like as a thing. As a
little robot. But yeah, I have my hope. My vision for what humanity will look like is that we are so disconnected from each other that we forget we're in the room from one another, unless we can figure out what this connection of community really feels like, so that the synthetic fibers that are being introduced through AI right now become life efficiency improvers, but they don't improve the quality of life. What they've done is enhanced our ability to genuinely build good human connection with one another. That's my hope.
That's the dream.
Also, do you think on the other side of this AI renaissance, we'll call Twitter X, or are we just going to keep it Twitter?
It's Twitter forever for me.
Great.
I'm not budging.
Amazing. Well, Christina, thank you so much for your brilliant mind, for all of your expertise. If folks want to connect with you, learn more from you, talk with you, how do they get in touch?
So you can find me on LinkedIn to search Christina Garnett. I'll be there. Every other platform is that Christina G. And you can also check out my website, Pocket CCO, to see what I'm doing and if that's something that you want to do.
And I will tell you, it is something you want to watch and see and be involved in. So, well, thank you so much, Christina. It's been such a pleasure.
It has. Thank you so much.